Okay then guys, let's get on with this, showing you what I did to do this camera modification. Now you're going to need a few bits and pieces for this. You need something like this if you've got it, with some bit of glue. You're going to need something like this, something similar. This is just a broken prop, but it's going to come in handy. A pair of these, screwdriver, another screwdriver, little one, pair of tweezers, and this is the tool that we're going to use to, or at least that I used. I can't really show you how to do it again, so I've already done it. Or I can't do it again. I'm going to show you what I did, but I can't actually do it again, so I've done it already. But this is the grinder that I've used. Now this was no more than sort of like £25. It came with a whole bunch of bits and pieces. Although my only complaint I have with it is that all these things down here used to live up in these areas and they all just fall out. I used to live in there as well and they all just fall out. That's a little bit annoying, but you know, for just kicking about the bench, it comes in quite handy. All sorts of different tools in it. I'm not sure what that is. Could be some sort of resin that goes off, but I don't even know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So, because we're not going to be using any of that. We're not going to be using any of that. So this is what you're going to need. And now I'm going to unscrew the drone. I move it over here. Unscrew the drone, and you can see that all sped up. And then we're going to look at exactly what I did. Okay, so we're going to do this. I'm going to take this apart today, and I'm going to show you what I did to the camera. Don't expect too much. Like I said, it's a very simple thing to do. But this is the reason why I've got to do it. Is I'm hoping, if I bring that back here, I zoom in, that you can see just inside there. Here we get the right angle. No, that's the top. You want the bottom bit. How can I get the light in on that? Maybe I turn it around that way. You can see that? See that sticking down? That's a screw. And that screw's coming undone inside. And that's not going to make for a very good day if that were to get out and go across the terminals of something we don't want it to. So fortunately though, I won't have to strip it all to pieces to get to that board. In order for me to be able to get to that screw on that camera board, all I've got to do is take these apart, you know, these 4 screws here, and the 2 little ones in here, and the ones off the feet. Undo the 4 screws at the top, and then just move on the very slight amount that I can move it, while keeping all this together, enough for me to get the screwdriver in and just put that in correctly. And at the same time then, I'll be able to show you what I did down at the camera end, because once I can move that board slightly, that's all I need to do it. That's what I'll be able to show you what to do there. And Chris, if I remember correctly, for you fella, yours is even simpler. You'll see anyway. You'll see. So I'm gonna speed through just taking these screws out, because you don't want to watch that. I mean, it's boring. You can take the screws up, put them in a pot, and yeah, and then we'll take a look at see what we got. Now this is one of the reasons I'm about to show you why. What I'm going to do next with these feet can be quite beneficial. Now, even though in this instance it hasn't worked out completely for me, this is for the amount of times that I've taken this puppy apart. This is it's only the second time I've had to do what I've got to do with it. and you can sort of avoid the majority of times of this happening. But it may just happen from time to time anyway, because they're not that easy sometimes to get off. And that's, you can see here, look, one of the wires, the red wires come off. So I'm going to have to resolder that back onto that pad just there. I'll have to cut it back a little bit as well to do that. Bit of a pain in the butt, but never mind. And what I'd suggest normally is that if you haven't got any broken pads there, once you've got these two screws out that hold the bit of body together here, then you can put this foot back on and just nip that up. It just means that you won't have this flopping about the place and you're less likely to pull those wires off. Okay, so just get that screw out there, because there's no point trying to screw this screw back in, because it doesn't actually, once the white's away, it won't have anything to tap into. But this one does, because it screws into the underside. Right, so they're out. Okay, so I'm going to put that back in there as well. So I just don't have those flopping about, and you can see just by old pat this we need to press down. That's quite a tight fit on there, so. Okay, so I've still got a couple of screws. I've actually got one which isn't the correct screw in this, and it doesn't seem to want to come out most of the time, but I can still get the body shell part. So if I just turn that over into there, we've got one left, a little bit of a tap, a bit like a Apple's orange, tap it and wrap it. Okay, so that's not really coming apart, but we're not going to bother too much about that. I don't really want them knocked that off or anything, so it's got all the screws in there. So to get it apart, all I do is I just put my fingers in the back here and I just give that the first little bit of a prise open, because it's just the simplest place to get to it. And then just go around the edges and literally do that in with my fingers and just pull around the edges. Just until I get it. I don't want to try and pull off the legs. I might even push down on the motor slightly as long as it's not too hard. But I don't want to pull it all the way off, otherwise it's going to be, you want to have this as flush going on and flush coming off. It just makes it easier for you, honestly. And then I'm not even going to do the front yet because that's clipped. I'm just going to go in around this edge here with my fingers and just push slightly. A little bit of extra by just pushing, not hard, but firmly, but not hard on the motor. Then it's just this front bit which is clipped. So as soon as I get my fingers underneath there, look, that's it. Then I can just go around, just get the rest of it. But trying to keep it all at the same amount to come off. And the nice thing about not having these LEDs flopping about is if you are moving all this, they're not all flopping about, hanging on the wires underneath. Okay, so I'm going to put this back here now, because I wanted to be able to do that and show you on the camera without raising it up out of the way. So what did I need to do? I needed to, well, we need to loosen off the board anyway. So I'm going to find a way that just gives me access to where I want it to. Now, what I want access to is these 4 screws on the top. There's one here, there's one here, so I can get to those 2 from here. And then there's 2 on the back. So let me just whip out these ones here first. Now all the screws are different sizes, meaning, well, okay, so the body shell screws are all the same size. Those 4 little ones, 2 on each leg, are the same sizes, of course. And then these ones, the actual boards in here, are a different size again. So it's quite easy to remember which screws are which, especially after you've done it quite a few times anyway. Okay. And then there's just that one, and that gives a little bit of leeway. It doesn't give you that much movement. It won't give me that much movement, but it'll give me enough. I'm hoping it's going to give me enough to get to that bottom part of the board thinking about it now, I may not have enough, but let's just have a look anyway. Do you know, I reckon I can get a screwdriver in down there. I reckon I can get this little puppy down there. Because this is, that's where I'm going to get to. You see, looking from the top, you can see that screw. I hope you can see it on the camera there. If you can see the green underneath, you should be able to see that screw. Maybe those wires are in the way, but that doesn't make any difference because I'm going to go in between those wires and I'm just going to get in there and screw that down like it's supposed to be, nice and firmly. There you go, so I hope you can see that. That's that bit done. That was a little bit of a worry. Might just see if I can get a little bit of, move that out of the way there, so I can get the screwdriver in down here, just to ensure that that one's not going to do the same. No, that's fine. I'm sure I probably just overlooked the one. Right, okay, so that's that bit. Now let's have a look at this camera. Now, I've chucked all my screws in here, as you probably saw me doing. I'm just going to pop them into here, because if I were to knock this over, all the screws would go everywhere, and that would be a bit of a nightmare trying to find it. Now, I'll use this, it's great, because I can just pop this onto here and it's at the right height for me now to be working on. So, as I showed you before, we didn't really need to do anything apart from undo the screws here on the top of the board, undo these two screws from here on the bottom of the board. They're the holes for the screws, these bottom bits, and these, the little pins from the spacers pop through into there, so you know that it's all sat into its right place. But that's it, that's what you got to do when doing that. Now I'm not going to take the top off, because you don't need to do this. So, you know, my pigtail and everything's going to stay where it's supposed to be. Well, all I did, it's not much of a modification. The main genius behind this is how little of a modification it is. The biggest thing about it is grinding out this bit here. Grinding out this. Now, forget that you can see that bit of foam sticking down there. That won't be there in a second. And it's only because I've pushed it back down again, because what I wanted to do was just take the hot snot off the top. Yeah, it just makes life a little bit easier. So the hardest part about this, I think, personally, is just grinding this out. So this grinder on here is the perfect size. It's the perfect size. It is the size of the hole, pretty much. I think the hole's just very slightly bigger in this, but it's so you can literally just, while it's spinning, you know, just hold the front of that and just literally just go up and just make it a little bit more longer. Yeah, so it's more of a length here rather than a width. You don't really need to do width hardly at all. You might just need to do a very small amount just on the edges, but not very much at all. Not very much at all. So let's just pretend we got that bit done. That's the bit that you have to take your time for the most. And I mean, I just make sure you got plenty of time to do the whole thing anyway. So the tweezers, one, it helps when you put something like this in. If you're going to use foam, you may decide to do this a different way, but you can see now from the top that there's a gap. And this is why I've used foam, because one, it's very, very light, and two, I can sort of like make it go into near enough any shape I like. And if I put it in the tweezers the way I've done mine, so in that sort of V shape there, where it gets smaller there, that's why this is cut into a V shape. And literally all I've got to do is put it in here to be able to put it into there to let it expand out. And that's how I did it. And then the little bit that just sticks down the front, I can either pull it from the top out or just go from underneath and just push it out. Yeah, easy as foam. So with that being said, all I did before I do this, and I'll show you, I'm just going to explain it to you a little bit. That bit of foam gone. Yeah. I don't know, there it is. So there's a shorter piece in this, it's probably more like this shape, it's all been cut off the same sort of pieces. And I went underneath the camera. So if you imagine the camera is this, and there's the lens. So I've gone underneath it. So one, that allows the camera to have something to sit into, and it can sit in there firmly, and so it can have vibration absorption from it. And also, of course, it means that there's going to be no debris or anything get in here. When I flew out in the woods and I hadn't done it like this, I hadn't actually got it to this, the way it's adjusted at this moment, there was still a gap underneath the camera. And when I took it apart to do this adjustment, there was just crap all in the ESCs, it was everywhere. So you can get a lot of debris in, especially with those DAL 6040s. They don't know, make a kick down a bit more thrust and plug up, you know, whatever dust and everything's around. So that's how I've done that. That's how that is in there. But I'm going to take this apart now and show you. Show you this. So I'll just hold this. Now, because there's that bit of flexibility, look, because we've taken the screws out of the board, it gives me access to these screws. Let me just take these out. Oh, my eyes are terrible, but I've got new glasses coming from the optician, so I'm just going to tap that off into there, if I can get it off. Now, this is where you're going to see that all I did, so the tweezers come in handy, all I did with this, if I take that out of there, pop that out of the way, this bracket would normally fit on your camera like this, okay? So it would sit on your camera and the camera board would sit inside there in order, and that would allow the camera to be positioned downwards as it sat on the back of the board. But with me turning it round like this and then clamping this down, it's pulled the camera up. It's just pulled it up. It's not a big thing going on here. It's just pulled it up. So that is practically the mod. Just turning this over, making that hole a little bit bigger, so you've got the ability to have the camera move and come up, and turning it over. So let me just pop that in there. I'll show you this in here. So again, you should be able to see down there now. Just the light image, but you can see that sort of bronze coloured cable. That's the cable going to your camera. So by rights, I should now be able to just take this camera out of here. It's going to be a bit fiddly because, you know, if I'm not got the light in the way and everything, it's going to be easy for me to do. But for me just to do it like this to show you, if I pull that up, now you don't want to mess around with this front bit because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure that's got something to do with the focusing. So there we go. So there's the camera, and it's on that little bit of ribbon cable, just like this one is, but a lot shorter version. But you still get a bit of play around with it. And then when I put the sponge in, look, you can see how that sponge has closed the hole now, pretty much. When I wanted to do that, I just put the camera out of the way like this, and that's what I used this for. In order to keep it out of the way, I just had that in there, so I could then fit the bit of sponge. And it also, when I was grinding, I could put this in between there and have that grinder in there, knowing that I was going to do nothing to the camera lens itself. It was out the way, tucked out the way. This was in the way, and if anything happened, went through, it was going to hit onto this rather than the camera lens. I didn't want to take everything apart. I wanted it to just be as simple as possible. So then, in that space there, then you can see what I've done. I've just put in a U-bend. I've I've just done this and pushed it in, but just with a slightly smaller bit of sponge. I'm not going to take that out because I don't think it's really necessary to show you. And that's what I've done. So we've got that inside, and that allows me then to put the camera inside there. Because you may be thinking, well, how comes it's so level? How comes it's so straight? Well, that's because that bracket goes back on. And look, you see the board on the back of the camera? That would normally house around that board, this bit here. And that's how it keeps it straight and keeps it, you know, so your camera is facing absolutely straight when it's facing out there, because it would be sat down on it like this. Oh, I've just put it on like this because I want the back of that board to be pressed down a bit more so the front of the camera sticks up a bit more, because I want to see it that way rather than that way. Now, if you want your camera to face downwards a bit more, I think you could do it. You'd still have to grind out a little bit up top to get the angle. I don't think grinding down any further downwards is such a good idea. I don't know. You know, if you're going to do that, it's going to be slightly different. But and then you could maybe put something underneath at the bottom, so this didn't fit in all the way down the bottom so much, so it made it stick up, which would then make the camera face down a bit more. I'm sorry if you can't see this that well, but then you got the choice. You see how that camera's facing downwards now? You know, I don't know what the normal thing is for it, but this is how I want it. I want mine up like that. So I want the back of the board to be pressed a bit firmer downwards on that side, rather than have the back of the board sticking upwards the back of the board. The more tilt you're going to get that way. So that's it. That is it. That is it. Pretty simple. And then to have a pair of tweezers or something, so you can actually get in there and just find the position for this, because it's a little bit fiddly, a little bit time consuming, but it's going to be, you know, how well do you want it to work? And I want mine about there. I literally want mine facing just forward. And then the foam does its job. Look, it sits in there, cushions it, gives it somewhere to sit into. It makes sure that nothing can get in, bits and pieces blowing about. And then it's just a case of, when you put your bracket on, screw it down bit by bit to try and make it as flush as possible, because you still want that straight edge, so you know that your camera is not going to be on the you know, on the wibbly wobbly. So when you're looking at a level horizontal, it's not going to be sat off a bit, because I actually did that at one stage, and I was always trying to correct it while I was flying, so the drone would be on a bit of an angle just to the camera look straight. But that's no good. You want it all to be, you know, looking straight. And that's it. And that's all there is to it. Simple. Absolutely simple. So I'm going to put this back together again now. It's I'm going to do it off camera, just because it is a case of just making sure that oops, it'll fit that way on. And just making sure it's nice and level. So it'll probably be a little bit of trial and error for me. I can't remember. I think it was just a couple of times I had to put a battery in, just to stick it on the side, and I just put something I knew that was level on the side, and just checked in the camera, just make sure it was at the right, just make sure it wasn't scoop with. And that's it. There you go. So, I hope you find that useful. I hope if you're going to do this little mod, you'll see that it isn't a big difficult thing to do. There isn't even a great deal of taking apart to do. That's just that, you know, the shell, obviously you've got to be able to crack the shell open, and these 4 screws, and you've got that little bit of play, so you can just move that out of the way if you need to. And then yeah, a bit of foam, something like this, maybe something a little bit thicker like I've used. You know, I've used something a little bit wider, so it does the entire camera area, because that will help with, I mean, well, I don't know exactly with it help, I presume it will help a little bit with the vibration as well, a little bit of dampening. And there we go. Yeah, so when you've got your bracket, I know I've cut this up a little bit this video, but I just forgot something. Like when you got your bracket in there and you've got that sat in nicely, you know, re-put your little bit in across the top. Like I say, you can just get a bit of sponge there and put it in between. Put it in between your, and that will open out on the inside. You'll have to use 2 fingers. I've got to hold the drone and show you, but as you can see, look, the front bit's gone straight in, and so you won't have anything sticking out through the top. And then once you've got that, you don't want to use too much glue, hot glue. But if I just pop that in like that, just to give you the sort of, yeah, once you got that in like that, and you just use a bit of hot glue, because there's plastic here and there's plastic here of the shell, so make sure it's nice and warm. Just drizzle some down the side so it sticks onto that shell, and then just draw it across the top, just a few times, just to keep that all nicely in place. But you don't want to add too much weight to it. And there you go. There you go. Okay. Great stuff. Catch you in the next one, guys. Cheers for watching.